Good morning, everybody. In this video, I'm going to create an app using Appery.io. The app have simple functionality, which is basically allow you to log in. And when you log in, based in your user profile, it will direct you to the proper page. So I'm going to start with the UI first. So we're going to create the new app. And the way you create a new app, you just create a new app, and then we're going to call it registration or login app. Okay. In the login app, we'll have a couple pages while we're waiting. And we're waiting. Let me put this on pause, maybe give us time for it to load. Alright, so we got this app, and it has this project, and it has the one of the pages that is already in there is called start page. So I'm going to open it up, and then we'll just modify this page. And you can name it different thing. You can call it whatever, let's say main page, login page, whatever. Okay. Alright, so you can change that in the property, and then the caption, you can change the caption, the text, say first page or login. Alright. Okay, so this is our page, and if you look at the project, there is settings, app settings, and then it'll tell you what is your start page. If you have multiple pages, you can change it in here. And you can say the theme, you can select different themes if you want. For example, if you want iOS 7, now your design uses different CSS design, and so if you go look at the main page, it changes the look. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to add two text fields, one for the username and one for the password, and one button for the login. Okay. Of course, you can change these. You want to put it here, enter your ID, and the text type is text. You can tell different types. If you're familiar with app development, these give you different types, and then HTML5 is the same way. Okay. The second one is going to be password. Enter your password. Alright, and the type here is password, so it is hidden. Okay, and then the button is going to say login. Login, and that's it. I'm going to add another button. Now you can make this inline or mini version, so you can minimize it. You can make it inline, so it's actually smaller. We're going to add another button. This button is going to be, again, this is inline, and this button, let's move them around. So this button is going to say register. Now you can make it better by using panel. You can have the panel here. If you're familiar with tables and divs, this is kind of similar to grid. Sorry, here it's similar to panel and grid. So table and divs. So now you can let's say 2 columns, 1 row, so it would look better. And it's tricky here when you select this. You kind of almost have to alright, if we can do that. Okay, here's we got select the panels. Now we want 1 row, and then click on apply. Okay, now you can put your buttons inside, so it would look better organized. Alright, and what else do we have? This is it. Now you need to give these names, so it's easier to reference them in your application. So this is going to be user ID, and this is going to be user password. Okay, now you can use whatever naming convention you want. You can put txt, user enhance or txt or label if you're coming from Visual Studio, so you can, whatever conventions that you want to use. And this we're going to make it login button. Some people use this, so you can say button underscore login, and this is button underscore register. We're going to focus on the login today in these videos, and then maybe we can do the register in another video. All right. When you log in, basically what you have to do, you need to go to a source, a data source, and then check if this user is valid or not. And if it is valid, then you can navigate to the next page. So I'm going to have 2 more pages. We're going to create here, you'd say create page, and I'm going to say this is general page. General page here, and create page, and I'm going to have another one, maybe 2 more, another page. This is going to call admin page. And you can click on create. One more for registration, so we're going to create another page called register page. Okay, create page. And the first page, I'm going to just put on the admin page, I'm going to change the heading to say admin page. And the general, we call it home, if you want to call it. Just click on this and then call it home. So they are different. And this is the main page. And we will put few information here. I'm just going to put a couple labels just to show you. This is label LBL. Using class here, LBL name, and have another one, LBL type, user type. Okay, and you can again use a grid here to make it better. LBL underscore type, so you know that this is admin, this is a user. Okay, and then the same thing, I don't know if you can do cut and paste here, I haven't tried that, but and the same thing with the general page. We will have again one label here that says name, and of course LBL name, and to make it different we will add another label for phone. Okay, LBL phone underscore phone. Okay, and the registration will come back to that later on. Now if you go to, so as I was saying, in the main page, when you click on this, when you click on login, you take this information and you go to the database. Now Appery, they have a great tool called database. You can allow you to design the database and access it on the server side. Now, if you're familiar with app development, like we're using iOS, this takes a few line of codes, just to say the least, to do this part. But here it's all built in. So this is one of the selling points of Appery. So I have a database already created, and it's called registration app. Now you can create a new database if you want. When you create a database, automatically you get 3 files, and then you can create your own tables or files you want to call them, whatever terminology you want to use. So here you have a user table or collections. Here it's in Appery, it's called collections. Those are tables that comes in with every database, and the user, you have authentication such as username and password. Now in the Appery, I've seen they say you can create another column, but when I tried it, I couldn't retrieve the data. So we're gonna do another solution here, which allows me basically create my own table, and my own table will have its own custom data. So we leave this table only for verification login process to make sure that you know, when you log in, we go against this table. So we have two records, one is called Omar and one is called Ali, and then you have the passwords. Okay, so this comes in, of course you have to enter the data. And here how you add columns and rows, and then you can modify it. Here how you can, you have some RST values. REST is basically you're calling services, okay? In addition to the database, you query the database, the result comes, you pass the result through REST service API to your app, okay? So that's how it works. So now I have another table. Here is my user, and in my user table I've created same IDs that you saw in there, because this is what I'm going to query with. I'm going to tie these two tables with, and then I have the name, the full name, and then I have username, user type. One is called user, one is called admin, and I have a phone number. Okay, I have another table that we created that has some items for later on. Okay, but this is my database. Now the next step is that you want to go to your app builder. And here's where we're in the app. I want to create what we call, in any time you access the database, you use basically, you use two services. One database service and one what we call is REST service. So in the first step, we're going to go to the create, and then we have database service. You select your database, which is registration app, and then here you have this built-in functionality for you. Remember, we have a user table, so this one works against the user table, the login, the user table. So you have login, log out, and sign up for registration to create a new user and password. The nice thing, this is all secure, so you don't need to worry about that part. The other part that we have is that I want this table, which is the one that I am going to go against to get my details. Okay, again, this is a workaround. Maybe there is a better way, but because I need to, we're working on a deadline, and then I need to show this to the students. So here's how we do this. We go in the create. We want to be able to query the data. Okay, you can do read, you can do list, you can do all of these kind of things, but for this part, I just want to create, query the data, and for the register, I want to be able to create the user records later on. So I say select import selected services. Automatically here, you'll notice when it refreshes, it created these services for me. Some related to the login, log out, and sign up. Those are those three that one we selected. We have a setting, and then we have the two services that we selected for the my user table. Now, if I click on settings, you'll see that it has some data like your URL link, like these are like what do you call environment variables, if you will, and then you can use them in your application later on. So if you go to the login service, and we look at the login, you have automatically it puts the parameters that you need to access the user table. So this is your URL, the method, and the data coming back as a JSON, and the settings. This is that setting tables the setting that you saw in here. And security context, again, we don't have security for this, but if you go to request, this is before you send. Basically you need to provide username and password, and the response will give you back ID and session. This is where I had problem. I added other records to another column to the user table, but for some reason I could not get these columns in here. Now I've read the documentation, I went to the forum and everything, but it seems like one of the responses you could not get, it only returns these things for you. So I said, fine, this is why we created the other table. Maybe there's another way. If somebody knows, let me know. The test is how you test the data. So I know I have some test data. So Ali and 123 is my password. It should get test, and then you should get ID and session. So that means it's successful. Okay. I got my session token. The session token is what you use if you want to use, it's a secure app where you carry this session throughout your application. Every time you want to send a secure request, you have to send this session ID with it. So we'll get back to this in a minute. So that's okay. Now this import as response, it's already, I have it in the response, you see that? But sometimes when you, like if you have an XML data, or if you're calling an external service, or you want to create these fields, if you will, these parameters, the values that you get parsed out already. So you go in here and you click on import as response, and then automatically will appear in here. And so you can map him, as I can show you later on. Okay, so we're done with this part. Let's go to the request. So the request, and the request, so this is the data, this is that login service. So we're done with the login service. The next step after you do the login service is you want to use it in your page. So in the main page, I have this, right? Now, this is all the tools, the UI that you can use in your application. But next to it, you have design, you have data. Data is where you create or use those services that you created in the database. So you can say, you can create a service. What service you want to use? I want to use the login service, and then you simply click on add. And I'm going to call this login service. What this does, it allows you to configure your request and what to do with the request after you get it back. That means before I send it, I have to provide some information. So where do you get that information? You get it from mapping. And the mapping, you have two places. We have storage, and then we have page. Now, if I click on storage, you will be getting something from the storage. I'll get back to this in a minute. And then, but for now, I want to get the information from the page. I have user ID, the one I created, and then the password. Those are your text fields or input fields that you have in there. Now, what do you do with this? You select the service request, and then you basically tie them to these things. So the text goes with the username, the password, the pass goes with the password. Okay? And then you click on save and return. So that is before you run it. Now before you send the request, so you're taking these parameters, sending into the request, and then if it was successful, it comes back to here, and then you say, what do you want to do with the service? Here, what you can do, you can say, this is the request. Remember, that was the response. We get those two fields. If you have more fields, they will appear here. And I want to map him. I don't have anything to map to right now, but I'll show you how we map him later on. Storage, you can do, you can create what you call almost like variables that resides on your device, and you can store those so you can use them later on. We'll get back to this in a minute. But to test it, all I want to do for now, I'll go back to the save and return. Here you can add multiple steps So not only just mapping, if it's successful, maybe you want to, for now we'll just send an alert message, welcome to my app. Now if there is an error of any sort, we can send a message saying, well, sorry, you could not log in, okay, or wrong password or username. So if I click on here, on add, and one of them here, you see run JavaScript. And in this part, I'm going to say alert. If you're familiar with JavaScript, should be welcome. Oh, this error, right? So we can say could not log in, or whatever error message you want to put, could not log in. Now, in the documentation, it shows you how to get. You see this in the documentation. This is success or login service success. Okay, this success should say. Do you see this? It says success. So what we're going to do here, actually, I'm going to say welcome to my app. This is a success. All right, now click on save, and if there is an error, I'm going to add another error, another JavaScript, and here we're going to say alert could not log in for some reason, right? But to do it properly in the documentation, do you see this? This is your function actually you're calling, and you get the status, and then you can actually make a better message than this, because here this is just a general. Okay, but for this purpose, this is what we're going to do. So right now we have login service. Before I send, I have a mapping login service success. I'm gonna do this and then this next. You see those two steps, and then I have login service error, and then we run JavaScript here. Now let's go ahead and test it and see what happened. Save it all and then test it. Now in Appery there is a different way to test it. I'm not going into that. You can test it on your device. You can download an Appery tester app, and then you can test it that way. I think I found that to be better than testing it on the browser, because some browsers don't act properly. What's happening here? No, this is not what we want. I thought we said test. All right. So if I type in Ali and then I type in the password here, did I put it in the wrong way? I must have put it wrong here. And when I type in 123, and if I do log in, it should work, but there is a problem here. Okay, let me pause it, because sometimes it takes time. For some reason, it takes time sometimes to update the screen. So I'm going to pause it for now and try it on a different browser. Hopefully it will work, okay? All right, it wasn't, this is a common mistake. It wasn't that it took time to refresh. It was actually because, let me fix this part here so I don't have to see that again. The problem was, let's put that in placeholder. Remove this and then put this in. So enter text. Leave it as blank for now. The problem is we didn't put an action when we log in. When we click on login, we want to call the service that we just created. So if I go to events here, and I select the component. Remember, this was button login. Did we call it button login? Button login. Here it is. And then you want to, when you click on it, what do you want? You want to invoke a service. Which service do you want to invoke? You want to invoke the login service that we created in the data. Now it should work. Okay, so you click on save, test it, and then now it should work. This is a common problem. You forget because there are many steps. And why do I still getting that? That should not happen here. 1, 2, 3. Maybe it didn't take effect. No. You see, when you see that, it means welcome to my app. and that means what? That I was able to log in successfully. Now if I put in the wrong password, it should say could not log in. Okay, so that was the first step. I'm gonna stop this video. This would be part 1, and then we'll do part 2 where we talk about storing the data. And if you're familiar with this, so you can pause us. You don't have to start at this video, you can stop at the second video. Okay. All right, let's stop this.